Good evening. For those who I haven't had the opportunity to meet, my name is Doug McGee, and in my role as Warden of Convocation, I'll be chairing our proceedings this evening. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Spring Ordinary Meeting for 2017. I'd particularly like to welcome Chancellor of UWA, Dr Michael Chaney, AO, SIT WA, former Chancellor and former Governor, Dr Ken Michael, AC, former Chancellor, Clinical Professor Alex Cohen, AO, SIT WA, Vice-Chancellor, Professor Dawn Freshwater, 2017 Guild President, Nevin Joe Wardener, the Deputy Warden of Convocation, Dr Joan Pope, OAM, members of the UWA Senate, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Community and Engagement, Professor Kent Anderson, members of Convocation Council, all the members of Convocation, including their guests and friends. It's great to have you here this evening. It's the custom of the University to recognise that our activities take place on Noongar land and that the Noongar people are the spiritual and cultural custodians of this land, where they continue to practice their values, beliefs and languages. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present. I now formally declare the meeting open at 6:33 p.m. and note that I have an apology from Warren Kerr, our immediate past warden, who has been beaten by a stomach upset this evening, so won't be with us, and over 800 other members of Convocation. If anyone else wishes to convey apologies, please provide these to the Convocation Officer, Ms Juanita Perez, who will record the details. Thank you. Item 1 on the meeting agenda is the minutes of the Autumn Ordinary Meeting held on Friday the 17th of March 2017, which are enclosed in the agenda booklet for this meeting. Are there any amendments to the minutes? If not, as required under item 2, can I ask someone who attended the ordinary meeting last year to move acceptance of the minutes? Dr Joan Pope, and to second, Dr Brett Davies. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 3 is business arising from the minutes. In keeping with previous feedback that the opportunity to view the agenda papers prior to the meeting is valued by our members, we've continued that process, and the agenda papers have been available online for the last few days through a link that was provided in the email reminder sent out in the last week. I hope you found this of benefit. In terms of Q&A, following the last ordinary meeting, once again, there were many positive comments regarding the Q&A session at the end of the meeting. Consequently, we have included another Q&A session in the agenda tonight. Therefore, with one exception, rather than have questions after each speaker, we ask you to hold your questions until all our speakers are on stage for the Q&A session. In terms of statute and Act amendments, at the last ordinary meeting, then Warden Warren Kerr confirmed that the Act had passed with the immediate implications to Convocation now known in terms of representation on the UWA Senate. However, many of the items that govern Convocation's operations are found in the statutes, and we can confirm that Convocation has been invited by the University to consider and contribute to the amendments of interest to Convocation. This is expected to progress over the coming year and is of great interest to our Governance Committee, chaired by Dr Susan King. Item 4 on the agenda is correspondence. Convocation receives regular correspondence, and the emails and letters received since the last ordinary meeting have covered a very broad field. I have responded to these emails and letters individually and will also provide an overview of the important topics in my report this evening. We now come to item 5, which is the Vice-Chancellor's report. This is included in the agenda booklet at page 20, but please give a very warm welcome to Professor Dawn Freshwater, Vice-Chancellor of this university.
Thank you, Doug, and good evening to everyone. And may I start by also acknowledging that the lands that we meet on here, the Whadjuk people of the proud Noongar Nation. Also acknowledging the many former chancellors, governor, our existing Chancellor, the Guild President, and the Deputy Warden of Convocation, Senate members and executive members. I'm going to take the report as read this evening, and you can find it's quite a lengthy report this time, beginning at page 20 in your booklet. And it gives quite a run-through of the activities that we've been engaged in since the last meeting of Convocation, but I would like to supplement what's in the booklet with some updated information and one or two other pieces of information of interest to you, I'm sure. So taking that report as read, I will just acknowledge that, as the Warden has mentioned, I won't be able to stay for the Q&A, and so I will take one or two questions at the end of the short speech that I'm going to make. You'll be very aware, I'm sure, that there are many things happening on the campus at the moment, along with various successes in our rankings and other awards. The university has achieved many things over recent weeks. As I indicated at the previous meeting, 2017 has been a year that we focused on three key objectives, these being education, culture, and reputation. In the report, you'll notice that I have focused on the education strategy, and those four key projects that are identified in there are really addressing a whole range of initiatives that fit within those three key priorities, but particularly, of course, around education. We've also undertaken a staff survey recently, and that staff survey, we've had the results of, and we're beginning now to understand the implications of those results for the development of the work that we'll be doing over the next year or two with staff in order to really understand how we can continue to build on our existing strengths and to build the strengths into the future that are required for our 2030 vision. Since the report, I can advise that we've had more successes with a move up 14 places in the Times Higher Education World Rankings again. We've moved up from 125 to 111. And this is on the back of those rankings that I've commented on in the report, both in the QS and the academic ranking of world research. We've also been advised this week that the university has done very well in the 2017 Australian Awards for University Teaching. We've had citations for outstanding contributions to student learning. The awards for these recipients will be presented in Perth next week. And this week we also celebrated the election of 4 fellows of the Academy of Social Sciences in Australia. These came from the Faculty of Law, School of Social Sciences, the Business School, and the School of Education. So we of course publicly celebrate these successes, but as you also will understand, there's much work going on behind the scenes that lead to these successes, and so it's a huge thank you to all of those people involved. A lot of activity, as you might expect, over recent weeks, focusing on the issue of the higher education reforms, and in particular the legislations that have been debated in federal parliament this week. UWA, as part of the GO8, have been actively lobbying against the legislative changes on the basis that they will place further financial constraints on universities, further burdens on students, and create policy uncertainty for the sector. I'm pleased to say that we believe our efforts are having an impact and starting to leave us some success. You'll no doubt know that the bill is currently in the Senate, and we're watching with interest on its progress in the coming week, although we now don't expect to see it back on the table until the middle of October. At a state level, the state government budget was handed down last week, as you'll know, and I attended and hosted a table at that budget briefing. The presentation from the Premier and Treasurer was, of course, of interest to us because whilst the budget includes a range of measures of interest to other sectors, it's particularly pertinent to recognise that the Premier is bringing international education to the fore, along with the work that's taking place in the schools and the regional strategy, and so we're watching closely the commitment to international education noted during the state government's campaign as a strong area for growth and focusing on the school engagement strategy. On another positive note, we've been overwhelmed by the response and the level of interest in the Be Inspired campaign. This again is touched on in the report, in your booklet, but I think it's worth mentioning here tonight that in our search for 50 new academics that you heard me speak about at the last meeting, to date we've had over 440 people expressing an interest in working at UWA. We're yet to advertise a single role in that campaign. It's very interesting to note that those expressions of interest come from 46 different countries from all over the globe. And they're across a wide selection of faculties, disciplines, and fields of expertise. And as you might expect, with some of the changes that are taking place in higher education, we're also very keen to appoint joint appointments, working with industry and bringing in people with different expertise to support the future education of our students. We're very mobilised to act on this, and the level of interest that we're experiencing is really filling us with some trepidation, of course, because there's a lot to happen here, but with great excitement. Next year, if you recall, I made the commitment to start in earnest revising and developing the new strategic plan, culminating in a 2030 vision. That work is underway, and we're starting the work of the first roundtables with visiting vice-chancellors from all over the world, from the top 50 universities, and indeed 2 from the top 10 universities coming to visit the campus to support us in our endeavours to achieve that ambition. Those roundtables will take place at the end of this year and early next year, and I'm really pleased to note that the growing relationship with Convocation through Convocation Council means that we'll be engaging, of course, with Convocation in building that strategy for the future. A lot of that work around the strategy of the future will also focus on our campus and the new campus master plan. And there's been some really interesting developments of late, one of which you're going to hear about tonight. But just to touch on 1 or 2 of these, you'll be very aware, of course, I've noted this in the report, of the work that's taking place at the moment in Forest Hall and the developments there. And we had a topping out ceremony recently where we reached the highest point in the building, and I can assure you that building is really taking shape and will be a wonderful place for our scholars to be housed. We've also approved the development of the new School of Indigenous Studies, and this is going to be an outstanding building. It has the Noongar palette of colours. It's going to house some art and a small coffee shop, but more importantly, it'll be a place where we can really celebrate our traditions and cultures. We've also progressed the engineering zone, the E-zone, and work has taken place already in phase 1. We're moving into phase 2. All very exciting to see that development taking place on the campus. And of course, you're very aware, and I'd like to make a mention of this at this point, that over the past number of years in the university, there has been some movement and some progress in relation to a lot of our campus development, and that includes Underwood Avenue. I know there's interest in this matter, and so I wanted to advise you of the university's current understanding, which is that a response to the extension of the time frame of the state environmental approval is with the Environmental Protection Authority. We're advised that a decision is due in coming months. The university will carefully assess its response from the EPA to the EPA before making any decisions on the future of that project. And as always, we remain committed to close and constructive community engagement and consultation. So as I've mentioned, there's a lot going on. I have touched briefly on the progress that we've made this year, but one area that I feel is really important to mention in terms of progress by way of completion is to note that the work that we're currently engaged in is building a stronger relationship with Convocation through Convocation Council. And indeed, I have been able to go to Convocation Council's meeting recently, as has the Chancellor, and indeed as our Joe Agnew. And so we're working very in a very committed way to develop that existing relationship and advance the way in which we might all work together to create the sustainable future for this wonderful university. Thank you. Doug, I'm happy to take one or two questions now, if that's okay.
Are there any questions? Vice-Chancellor does have to leave early this evening, so this is the opportunity to ask her. But Professor Anderson will be in the panel later this evening, and he can take on all of the matters that I'm sure that Professor Freshwater can as well. But this is the opportunity for the Vice-Chancellor. One at the back. State your name, please.
Thank you.
Other universities are still struggling in trying to get an agreement. Would you like to comment on the factors which are led into would you like to comment on the factors you consider which have contributed to UWA agreement with your staff?
Thank you. I really appreciate that comment and question. We started the process of enterprise bargaining about 9 months ago, and it is a testament to the hard work of bringing to the table on a regular basis some of the difficult challenges that we face in the sector on both sides, from both the union and management, and really being committed to working those through in the best interests not only of the staff but for the students in the future. And what's happened, of course, through that process is we've had to reach compromise. And it's been that willingness to compromise, notwithstanding, of course, both sides have a line in the sand around which they're willing to compromise. It's that willingness to compromise that brought enterprise bargaining to a conclusion in a reasonable time frame. So I'm very happy that we've got to where we've got to. We had a very good turnout in terms of the voting. I have to say that this has been really collegiate working on behalf of the union and on behalf of management and staff. And I think one of the other contributing factors is that we've attempted to communicate with staff, both in terms of what we've been doing internally through the management and where the direction that we're heading in, and having the support of the unions to do that, I think has meant that the staff have been brought along with those discussions and negotiations.
Okay, we'll take one other question in the middle. Just wait for the microphone, please. Just stand and put your hand up so Devon can see where you are.
I think it's working now.
Okay, Mark Zan is my name. I'm paying 35,000 per year to this university and as an international student. But people who are like me, doing mechanical engineering, often have to leave Australia because they couldn't find work, because employers don't often want to hire international students. So I understand that the university has an incentive to attract more international students from China, because this is an important source of income for the university. So does the university have any plan to improve this situation and help the international students to thrive after their university life?
Thank you. And that's a really multifaceted question. So let me just start by commenting on the drive to recruit more international students. And I'd like to broaden that out and talk about the range of international students that we're looking to recruit to the university. Is, of course, we have very good relationships with China, and we have strong research partnerships with China, but it is much broader than seeking to recruit additional Chinese students. So I just wanted to make that comment. And that's particularly around our internationalisation strategy, because as you saw from the report around the Be Inspired, we're also looking to recruit international academics. So this is about creating a truly international experience for all students on our campus to benefit from. Your particular question around work, and this isn't just about making sure that we provide opportunities for work-integrated learning through the programme, which is key to the success for you in terms of your career and your future and your employment opportunities. So that's one of the things we're doing, and providing internships. It's also about our relationships with industry and our relationships with key stakeholders. And I had a meeting earlier this week, actually, with two of our captains of industry talking exactly about this particular issue, and have the ear of the Premier and the Minister for Education in this regard, because it's in the best interest of the state and us all to really make this work. Of course, for individual students, you're one of them, and for the university. But the university is situated in the state and in the nation, and this has to be really addressed as a national issue, which is why I have made numerous delegations to our state government and to the federal government around visa-related matters. So that's part of it. But making sure that we have appropriate pathways through internships, through work-integrated learning, and then opportunities for you to be in practice early before you graduate. So we can do what we're doing to support you, and I think it's important and incumbent on us to also do what we can to make sure that that message is clearly understood at the state and the federal levels. There is one at the back, which
We'll take one more, the last one at the back.
Hi, my name's Mark Anastasis. I'm just wondering what the university's policy is on commercialising its research, and what has been the success of its commercialisation in the past 10 years and the income derived from that to build a more sustainable university setting where it has income from other sources.
Great question, thank you. So you're probably aware, of course, that this question is in the context of what's coming out of the federal government in terms of the impact and translation agenda. In other words, ensuring that funding that goes into research and development translates and goes through the cycle in terms of end user outcome and impacting society, improving lives, impacting and helping industries to solve real world problems. And so this is in that context, we are encouraged more to think about commercialisation and innovation. This university does have a history of some commercialisation of its research. It doesn't have large numbers of spin-out companies, but it's one of the things that we're currently looking at. And in fact, talking at the moment around providing opportunities for our staff and students to have spin-in opportunities in order to really then look at the best opportunities for spinning out in the university and with industry. We are doing a fair bit in the medical space, so some in the biomed tech. That could be developed further, and that's likely to happen through our statewide collaboration through the WA Health Translation Network. That's one of the key outcomes that we're looking for in driving that hub of medical research through that joint network. We're also working at the moment in the state on two other areas where I expect there's going to be further commercialisation opportunities for all the universities, but in particular for us. And that one of them will be in the defence space, and the other one will be in big data, the square kilometre array and radio astronomy. Probably leave it at that. Okay.
Thank you very much, Vice-Chancellor. I know that the Vice-Chancellor will stay as long as possible, but knowing that she has an appointment in the city in about 30 minutes, I'm sure it won't be much longer now. So thank you for the questions, and thank you very much for the response, Dawn. Item 6 is the Guild President's Report. It's on page 26 in your booklet, and I now invite Guild President, Mr. Nevin Jayawardena, to present his report to Convocation. Please welcome Nevin.
Thank you, Warden. I'd also like to acknowledge that we are currently meeting on Whadjuk Noongar land and that the Whadjuk Noongar people remain the spiritual and cultural custodians of their land and continue to practice their languages, beliefs, customs and knowledge. I'll start by saying that we have done a lot this year and also that it has been a very busy year for myself. When people ask me, have you enjoyed it? It's very difficult to answer because every day you're dealing with a bunch of issues, but I can safely say that it has been a very rewarding experience. Right now we're in the midst of guild elections, so excuse me if I talk too fast or too slow or not at all. I'll try my best to keep this as engaging as possible, and I've got a nice slideshow presentation ready. I've got to turn this on. Oh wait, there it is. So what I'm going to go over in my presentation, let's see if we can go this way. Can you guys still hear me? Okay, cool. What I'm going to go over in my presentation is a brief summary of where the Guild currently sits, what we have focused on over this year, as well as what we hope to do over the next few years. But particularly looking at what the student perspective is for the student experience and what universities are about. So I think everyone would already be aware that there are 5 core functions of the Guild. This is also in my report, by the way, but I'm going to emphasize it with a nice presentation and also me talking to you. So there's student representation. This is so small. I didn't realize it would be this small. Hopefully everyone can see, but I'll read it out anyways. Student representation, opportunities to get involved, food and drink on campus, support services, information and advice. And all of this is funded in this particular way, also in the report. But in terms of income, we receive 50% through SAF and then the rest through our commercial operations. And all of this funds all the student-run activity on campus. This is a particularly important and also unique diagram of what the student representative structure is at the moment. So over the years, over the past 104 years since the Guild was established, the Guild has shrunk, it's grown, and right now we have a very effective student representative structure that aims to ensure that we are getting a broad and diverse view of the perspective of students. With 24 or 23,000 students, I think it's important to be careful of the fact that we can't think that this particular way of thinking is representative of all students. There are a bunch of different groups on campus that have very different perspectives, and as my job as Guild President, it's my job to make sure that I am able to represent those different groups. So we have our representative departments that look after Access. So Access is for students with mental and physical disabilities. Albany, because we've got a campus down in Albany. Environment, ethno-cultural, Indigenous, international, mature age, postgraduate, Pride, residential, sports, welfare, and women's. I think I'll also just clarify that Pride is for LGBTIQA+ students. We also have 157 clubs and societies. Right now, I think that's actually 162 as of Wednesday. So 162 affiliated, 172, including the faculty societies. Actually, no, 162 because we've got faculty societies over there. 162 affiliated clubs and societies, and they look after niche interests that students may have. So say if you're interested in chess, there's a club for you. If you're interested in electronic dance music, there's a club for you. And there's also a festival down tonight as well. It's 2 stories, it's amazing. And those clubs exist to look after students with a niche area of interest and to also add to that sense of belonging. Then we also have our faculty societies that represent the discipline areas within the university. And I can go through all of them as well, but I won't because that's also in my report. But essentially, all of these different groups are able to provide their feedback, their thoughts, their criticisms, their rants, whatever they want, to the Guild Executive, to the Guild Council, and to myself, so that when I sit on my 46 university committees, I am able to have a good understanding of what students feel. And what we're looking to do is make that representative structure even better and have even more specific feedback when it comes to units in particular. Right now, there are approximately 2,000 student representatives. I think student leaders is more of an appropriate term. And those 2,000 student leaders are those that are involved in faculty societies, in the departments, in the 157 affiliated club societies, and in the Guild. So that is quite a large proportion of students in comparison to other universities, especially where students are actively involved in the development of the student experience at UWA. This is the Guild Council team this year. I originally had a more stock standard Guild Council photo where we were all looking at the camera in a very dull way, but I think this represents us quite perfectly. Anyways, we'll move on. I've had 3 areas of focus this year, and I emphasize focus, and those are building relationships, operational excellence, and student representation. And this is mostly influenced over the work of Maddie Mulholland, the 103rd Guild President, and a continuation of some of the issues that she identified, as well as new ones that have come to my table. So I'll touch on each area and go into a little bit more detail as to the particular things we've done within each of these areas of focus. I've given a broad overview in my report itself, but for building relationships, we've done... Why isn't this working? Come on. I'm having to press this like 3 times just to load one bit of text. There we go. Okay. So there's a partnership. This is a very important piece of work that aims to create a better culture between the university executive administration as well as the students. Firstly, to have the student voice mean a little bit more when it comes to the university committees, and that everyone across the university is aware that students aren't just consumers of education, but we're also partners in developing and delivering education and also the broader experience. This is very popular within the UK, as I mentioned in my report, and UK universities seem to have very good, seem to do very well when it comes to student experience, and currently there's a study being done all across Australia that aims to introduce a similar model at all Australian universities. I was hoping for UWA to be the first to introduce this, but ANU beat us to it, but hopefully we'll be second. That has essentially been put into place already. I mean, maybe not. Maybe we might not have a proper signature on the paper, but I'm very lucky that we have the Vice Chancellor that has included me in a number of discussions, particularly high-level university appointments, and has ensured that there's been a student voice when it comes to the management of the university, which has been a privilege to be a part of. So thank you, Vice Chancellor. Then there's also the state government. We've been networking with the state government to ensure that there is support for the student experience, and that we are always looking to ensure that any decisions made within that particular body positively affects students at UWA. I might need to pour myself a bit of water soon. Then there's the Guild Alumni Network, where we established a network to connect all previous people involved in the Guild and get them to come back to learn about what we're doing, and to also, in the future, help us in ensuring that we are developing, introducing initiatives and projects and not making the same mistakes that may have been made in the past. Guild departments, convocation. I'll touch on convocation because obviously I'm at the convocation ordinary meeting a little bit later and emphasize a few points there. Operational excellence. I do have 10 minutes, so I do really need to rush myself. The main one worth mentioning here is the strategic plan. Each year, the Guild President comes in with a few areas of focus, might be 5, might be 10, I don't know. But last year there was 3, this year there's another 3. And the problem with this is each year the Guild President and the rest of the council team comes in for a year. We have 3 areas that we want to touch on. We have our own unique areas, but there's no real plan to introduce some sort of consistency between those years. And I can understand, particularly for our stakeholders and the university, if there is no consistency, then, and if you have one great year with the Guild, how are you going to be certain that you're going to have another great year the next year? So this strategic plan will hopefully introduce some sort of consistency between the councils to show to our stakeholders and to show to ourselves that this is where we want to be in 3 years. And so we'll set an appropriate plan to make sure that we do the necessary things to get out to put ourselves in that position in 3 years. Or 5 years, or whatever years. We're still planning, so we don't know how many years yet. But it'll probably be 3 years. Moving on, student representation. The other side to the partnership is also ensuring that student representatives understand their role on university committees. It's very easy for a student representative that doesn't have the necessary training to come onto this committee and to be talking about their own personal perspective when they're supposed to be representing a certain demographic of students. Sometimes that's all well and good, but a lot of the time it's really important that we are able to be conscious of our own feedback, of our own perspective, and to ensure that whatever perspective that we are delivering to that particular committee, that it is representative of that whole group. And so there will be structures and mechanisms in place to ensure student representatives are as effective as possible, and that we are able to assist the university in ensuring, again, that we are improving the student experience. All of this is about improving the student experience. Moving on. So we have a number of key achievements. Come on, there we go. This year, and have another part that also compares it to 2016, just to show how much we have improved over last year. Whoops. Okay, go back. So right now, 2017 year to date, we have 778 events. Last year we had 813. We're on track to hit about 1,200 events over this year. The thing about events, in an international survey, we'll also recognise as being the top institution in Australia, I think, for social activities. So that's pretty cool. We've had 1,200 cases come through Student Assist. So if you don't know already, Student Assist is a service that delivers academic, welfare and financial support for students. This might look concerning because we have more students coming to access the service, but also it's good because more students are aware of the service and is seeking formal help. We've raised 45K, sorry, not 45, I'm not reading this right, 55K for Prosh. We have 172 clubs, affiliated clubs and societies, in comparison to 142 from last year. Our engagement with with the students has increased to 15,000 opens of our newsletters with each week. We have 19K volunteering hours recognised and 2,000 student leaders. Something I'd like to touch on here as well, I understand there was a question asked before from a mechanical engineering student around what we're doing to increase employability prospects. What UWA I think does better than a lot of other universities, I would like to say every other university, is the clubs and societies especially. These clubs and societies provide students with an opportunity not only to engage with other students, to build important support networks, to just network in general, but it's also a way for personal development and also skill development. For quite some time, a lot of these skills weren't formally recognised. We are looking to have these skills that you gain through getting involved in the club and society, getting involved through the guild, formally recognised on your academic transcript, and ensuring that UWA graduates are placed on a higher level in comparison to other graduates, because what you get at UWA is not just a piece of paper with a bunch of units that you've completed over your degree, but it's also a lot of soft skills, a lot of generic skills, I think you might want to call it, that aren't formally recognised. And we are looking at ways to ensure that these skills are formally recognised, so that when you go to an employer, they don't just see that you've got A's and B's and high distinctions and distinctions, et cetera, that you've also built skills around communication, data presentation, conflict management, other skills. I can't think of all of them off the top of my head, but that's the general idea. And right now, I'll be able to safely say that myself being involved in the guild, being involved in club societies, a lot of these opportunities have put me in a place that where I feel a lot more ready to take on a job within the workforce. And I think that is something that is very unique to WA. That is something that we should capitalise on, and that is something that we should be encouraging more students to get involved in, so that they are able to become more employable once they get into their final year and start applying for jobs. And that is also reflective in the significant increase in volunteering engagement. So we offer volunteering service to students, and we're seeing each month the level of engagement with students seeking volunteering opportunities has increased quite dramatically. And I know some students might come to this service thinking, oh, I need to get some volunteering hours recognised on my academic transcript so that I'm more employable and things like that. But on the flip side as well, students, once they get involved, realise the intrinsic benefits, and they see the value that it adds to the community. And I think that is also part of shaping the personal development aspect when it comes to studying at UWA. Well, I'm getting tired. Challenges. So I'll start with student wellbeing just because of what I talked about before. As a result of the more competitive job market as a result of having to balance a job, as a result of having to study and managing all of these various different commitments, plus a bunch of others. Student well-being, the issues surrounding student well-being are definitely on the rise. And in my report, I think that, there are figures around a recent survey that was conducted by the National Union of Students that recognised 67% rated their mental health as fair or poor, and that 65% of respondents reported high or very high psychological distress. So that is, of course, very, very, very concerning, and there's, of course, no easy fix to student well-being, but the Guild, in partnership with the university as well, is working quite hard to ensure not only are we being reactive, that we have reactive measures to support students that are going through difficult times, but we are also being proactive in making it easier to study at university, to get engaged in extracurricular activities, and that they have the necessary and adequate support networks around them so that they don't come across these sort of issues in the first place. I mean, that's not, of course, going to solve all the issues, but hopefully we'll be in a step in the right direction, and we have, of course, 2,000 student leaders that are helping us achieve positive outcomes for students that have issues around student well-being. Then there's also the cuts to higher education. This adds on to student well-being as well. Right now, with the federal cuts to higher education and around those cuts, there's this sort of general feeling that students nowadays are required to pay more, they have to pay back sooner, and they're getting less for their degree. So there are, of course, barriers and challenges in that space, but again, working with the university, and again, I'd like to commend the Vice-Chancellor, who has had to leave for her appointment in the city, for the efforts around lobbying the federal government in making sure that UWA's unique degree structure is protected, and that we continue to have a degree structure that, again, places UWA graduates on top of others. It sounds bad, but I mean, you've got to look after UWA. So the last slide is achievements. I'm not sure how I'm tracking for time. All right. There are a number of achievements here. I won't go through everything, otherwise I will be here forever, and the warden will be kicking me off stage. But this is a brief snapshot of everything that we've accomplished over this year. Again, I probably would start to summarize now. It has been a very it's a tough year being Guild President, managing all the various different issues and sitting on 46 university committees. And a part of this is also ensuring that we go through a governance restructure so that the Guild President is required to sit on less committees, and that we can better delegate the roles so that my well-being is also looked after, that future Guild President's well-being is being looked after, but more importantly, that well-being is important, of course, but also importantly, that the Guild is able to work in partnership with the university to develop strategies, to develop structures that always seek to improve the student experience. This is essentially my last important talk of my term. I'll be done on the 1st of December, and I'd like to say a few thank yous. Of course, to those that elected me into this position and trusted me to represent the views and perspectives and well-being of 24,000 students. Also like to thank the warden, Doug, as well as the rest of Convocation Council in their support over everything that we have been doing over this year. I care a lot about this university. Being involved in the different clubs and societies, being involved in the Guild has definitely helped me to understand how important universities are for a student. Getting involved in all of these different things has been a life-changing experience for myself, and I know for a lot of other people, and I'm sure for a lot of you, which is why you're probably back here learning about everything that's going on. UWA has been a life-defining experience for me, and it's really important that the Guild, that Convocation, that the university are all working together to ensure that students have the best possible experience over their time at UWA, so that they graduate, they look upon this experience fondly, and that they maybe get involved in convocation, whether it be in the council or coming back to these meetings to ensure that we are doing the same for UWA students. So thank you. To everyone for listening to my ramble. I hope it wasn't too long, that it wasn't boring. Yeah, that's it from me. Thanks.
Obviously, Neville will join us later in the Q&A session, but I think anyone who's been to recent ordinary meetings of Convocation and has experienced, I can think of the last 4 or 5 guild presidents that I've seen, can only be impressed with the quality of young people they are, with their dedication to the cause, and with the great work that the guild is doing under such leadership. We certainly know that a few of the recent ones have gone to greater things, Nevin, and I'm sure you will as well. So thank you very much. Congratulations. Well done. Okay, item 7 on our agenda. Sorry, more important things. I have had a request. I think it was about half-time, and the score was 58 points to 22 points. The good news is Geelong is winning, unless you're a Sydney supporter. Item 7 is the Warden's report. There's a full copy in the booklet, but rather than go through in detail, I'll just highlight a few things. The Chancellor and the Vice-Chancellor. Since the last ordinary meeting, we've had both the Chancellor and the Vice-Chancellor attend our council meetings, and that was just a wonderful opportunity. And our sharing of the council and the council doings with them was most important. We really thank both Dr. Cheney and Professor Freshwater for their involvement with us and support of us. The new Chancellor, of course, will be the Honourable Robert French AC, SIT WA, who offered very sage advice to Convocation as guest speaker at the last meeting, and we certainly look forward to working with him as well. Amendments to the UWA Act. I've mentioned briefly earlier that the next phase in this reform process will involve us through our examination of the statutes and the relationship to Convocation and the university. We look forward to involvement with that. Convocation communication. I'm sure with what you've seen around us and me tonight, you'll realise that we're making a bit of a focus on this. All members of Convocation are lifetime members of the university community and of UWA. And so maintaining communication with graduates and other members of Convocation is viewed as vitally important in keeping everyone informed of the challenges facing the university and the actions being taken to address these challenges. We have promoted that Convocation must be viewed as far more than the occasional meeting of 300 of its mainly more senior and experienced members. There is a role for Convocation with the newest graduates, as there is for those who graduated many years ago. To this end, Convocation has reinvigorated its recently inactive LinkedIn site to create an important vehicle for communicating with and celebrating the achievements of our members. The LinkedIn site is listed in the report. We've also reinvigorated the discussions and partnerships with the operational sides of the university, and I thank both the Vice-Chancellor and Nevin as Guild President for recognising the importance of that relationship. It's absolutely critical that we work with and support the university. And a further expression of that is our invitation tonight to Mr. Tom Murrell, a UWA graduate, member of Convocation, past president of the UWA Graduate Management Association, to examine Convocation's challenge, communicating and connecting. To this, we'll also add later celebrating the success and achievements of our graduates, the members of Convocation. And an example of that celebration is found on your seat tonight, where we advertise a Convocation conversation, Why Wine?, where graduates with high impact on the WA wine industry will come together to discuss their progress beyond UWA and into the wine industry. We thank the Student Guild for helping us to stage this event. We would be delighted for you to join us at this event, and registration details are on the form. Graduation ceremonies are important to us. We play a very important role in the university's graduation ceremonies, and we're part of the review of graduations that appreciates the fact that the new degree structure has generated many more ceremonies than in the past, imposing time and other pressures on the many involved. Equally, Convocation values the opportunity of the graduation ceremonies to welcome its new members and present a positive and supportive face to the new graduates. Changes and improvements are being examined, and Convocation is part of those considerations and will express its views strongly. Honours for members. Convocation's Honours Committee plays an important role in assisting and promoting the recognition and celebration of achievement by UWA's graduates. An impressive list of recipients of Australian honours is printed in tonight's booklet. Convocation is also prominent in promoting graduates for UWA honours, such as the Convocation Medal, Chancellor's Medal and honorary degrees. And we need your help. If you're aware of somebody who would be a worthy nominee, then please contact Convocation through me as Warden, Warren Kerr as Committee Chair, or Juanita Perez as Convocation Officer. Volunteering and the Student Guild. In a developing partnership, Convocation has decided to recognise and support student volunteering, presenting an award for the top student volunteer. This will be presented later tonight to Hannah Morgaine, whose very impressive volunteering details are found in my report. Then I come to the Masonic Hall Innovation Space, a contribution by Convocation. Some 9 months ago, a request was made to Council to consider supporting the development of a graduate innovation space in the redeveloped Masonic Hall on the corner of Broadway and Stirling Highway. Many aspects of the cost and benefits of such a contribution were considered by Council over an 8-month period. At a special meeting conferred to consider the final decision, Council agreed to contribute $100,000 in the first year of that development, with an allowance to be returned to Convocation to account for the lost return on investment in 2017. The consideration was detailed and the vote to support was positive. That the contribution to the new initiative limits Convocation's future investment income is appreciated. Convocation has revisited its capacity to raise funds by various mechanisms, and the opportunity is now reopened where it has been constrained in recent years. And many of the members present tonight well know that Convocation has contributed to UWA gifts and building initiatives in the past, and some of these are featured in tonight's booklet, and they have been very well done and very well received within the university. Before leaving this point, I'd like to ask Chancellor Dr. Michael Chaney to come to this stage and receive the presentation cheque that marks Convocation's support for the Masonic Hall Innovation Hub in 2017. Chancellor, it's a big one. There's Manny. You want to come up, Manny? I think we should get a photo of this occasion, although we're separated by a cheque. Thank you.
Can I say a few?
Yes, certainly.
Doug, thank you very much for that. It's a very significant donation by Convocation. The development of the Masonic Hall there will beautify the northwest corner of the campus, which has been pretty derelict over the years, and so I think that's one of the positive things. But even more so, the innovation hub that's going to be developed there will provide an opportunity for Convocation members, other alumni and students to network and develop ideas. Convocation, of course, in the past has been involved in providing funds to restore buildings like the Irwin Street buildings, and I see this as a continuation of that, a very valuable, significant contribution by your organisation. Thank you very much.
And just looking at Council, in the meeting booklet, we've done as we did when we met with the Chancellor, Vice-Chancellor and Chief Advancement Officer. When they attended our Council meetings, we presented each of them with a copy of the photographs and profiles of all councillors so that we could be fully appreciated, and that Council is a wonderful group of people assisting me in the simple role as Warden. I think take the chance to get to know your councillors much better. I'm happy to take questions on my report and any other issues in the Q&A session, and that will be later. So please hold your question till then. The next item in the meeting is the Convocation Officer's Report, which is contained on pages 46 and 47 of the agenda booklet. This report is required by UWA statutes, and it simply contains a list of graduates whose whereabouts have become unknown since the last ordinary meeting in March. To assist you to quickly locate colleagues and friends, we've sorted this list by faculty and year of graduation to hopefully help you to check if there's anyone you may know. Please have a look at the list, and if you know the whereabouts of any of those included, I ask you again to contact Juanita Perez, the Convocation Officer. Thank you for that. Item 9 is the audit report. The next item on our agenda is item 9, the independent audit report. That report is provided for your information in the agenda booklet commencing at page 48. It's been considered and endorsed by Convocation Council on your behalf. The report is without any qualifications and demonstrates that Convocation is in a healthy financial state and able to pay its debts when they fall due. On your behalf, I wish to commend the work of Honorary Treasurer Dr. Brett Davies and the Convocation Officer Juanita Perez for their contribution to this excellent outcome. Thank you. Item 11 relates to other business. Other business to be brought to this meeting correctly has to be advised well before. There are no items that have been brought from the public group here tonight, but there are a couple of items of other business that are quite special, and these are the presentation of Convocation medals. The Convocation Medal is presented to members of Convocation who have made significant and sustained contribution to Convocation, the university and the community. It behoves Convocation and the university to look widely at its servants who have helped make this great university what it is today. And tonight we recognise Peter Green. Peter, I'm going to embarrass you. I think you should come up now so they know who you are. And I'll probably embarrass myself straight away by saying simply, this has come because, and I see Neil Donaldson sitting in the audience tonight, and of course Neil was a Convocation medalist at the same time last year for wonderful services to the University Football Club. Peter's associated with the University Cricket Club, and that probably starts to show where some of my interests lie. But Peter also, I'll digress a little bit more, played football with me in the 1970s, so that brings me back to the seniority and experience of the group we have here tonight. And Peter's slightly shorter than me, but I remember, as I was coach, nominating him to ruck for me on occasion, so I didn't have to do it. Anyway, Peter Green and John Meyer and John Townsend are both legends of the UWA Cricket Club, and they contributed to this citation, but in the end I had to ask Peter to tell the full truth so the story could be complete. It's a story of a servant who has enjoyed what he's done and who has been treasured by those for whom he has done it. Peter Malcolm Green is a legend of the Uni Cricket Club because of his longevity as a player and also his commitment and contribution to the club, both behind the scenes and in the spotlight. He's been with the club since 1975-76, when he started playing as an undergraduate, and holds the club record for the number of WACA matches across all grades, playing regularly until 2005-06, 30 years after he started. Altogether, around 400 games in the university cap, with most of those games running over 2 days. His record is well in advance of the second, who is John Townsend. Peter played 24 first grade matches from 78-9 to 85-6, and a tally that would have been far greater had he not been a teacher and taken country service, so obviously was not available for quite a while. An important member of the fourth grade premiership side of 2002-03, his last WACA match was in 2010-11, so his playing career in all spanned 35 years. He was a fine leg spin bowler, a useful batsman and a brilliant fieldsman, especially in the covers. He's also made many appearances in the veterans cricket team, including a tour of England in 2008. He's not just a player though. In 77-8 he won the club's Le Couture medal for the champion cricketer of that season, but he's also held many administrative positions in the club, including Vice President, Secretary and Treasurer, and for several years was Chairman of Selectors. He was made a life member of the club in 1992. In 1995, Peter was granted the award of Club Letter at the 75th anniversary of the Sports Council Blues Awards. But there's more. Peter's been a committee member for around 20 years, has represented the club on the WACA District Council, the Guild Sport and Recreation Council, has been Cricket Coordinator for School Sport WA, President of the WACA Schools Cricket Council, and a member of the WACA Game Development Committee. As well as playing, Peter has attended and participated in the net somewhere between 500 but likely closer to 1,000 training sessions in that time. Recently, he's been chairman of selectors and net captain for over 5 years. Peter supported the movement of the Irwin Street building and helped the club to survive by taking the WACA to the Supreme Court for an injunction and then winning the battle at a WACA AGM. He repeated the fight for the club a few years later, so the man is dedicated. He helped establish the UWA Foundation, which has guaranteed financial security for the club, organised the UCC Team of the 20th Century and the associated function, and he's on the organising committee for the club's centenary dinner. He's also helped preserve the history of the club by designing and having made by a friend a club honour board and rescuing and helping restore all of the club memorabilia from the old shed with a bit of help from Mum. He's fought for the club by liaising with any group the club annoyed, including a few others, including co-tenants such as Convocation. For 20 years, he's helped get 44 players on the field with all grounds ready and all in the correct gear. After 20 years, he still pays the club phone bill, which the club apparently may not be aware. Peter tells me that in 3 years' time, when he retires from work, he'll be back to other roles in the club. So the story is very much unfinished. It's sort of about a story of enjoyment, but in reality, this is a story of deep commitment, someone doing what he does because he deeply cares for it, and in the end, he and others have benefited. Peter Green is a very worthy recipient of a Convocation Medal for services to the University of WA, because it's not just the cricket club, it's all of the students and graduates and others who have benefited by his involvement as a student and graduate of this wonderful university. It's my pleasure to present to Peter a Convocation Medal. Oh. I just broke the box. And there's a certificate that goes with that too. I'm sure that slips back together. Yeah.
Do you mind if I...
Just a few quick words, Peter.
I'd like to thank Doug for those kind words. The good thing about the history is that I'm probably the only one that can validate it, so you can take what you want there. Look, it's funny with volunteering. It's a very tough thing to do. Once you start, it's very, very hard to stop because no one else will do it. And often you feel very, very guilty. You see the holes and you need to fill them. And, sometimes, I say, I hope someone doesn't ask me to do something else because then I'll say yes, but sometimes you regret it. And I think probably one thing that we've got to come out of this is there's got to be a lot more people that get involved in voluntary things and don't leave it to the few. It's very interesting volunteering for university students. They are particularly irresponsible. And I was probably one of them, and it allowed me to. We don't have too much family support or adult support, which is good, but it also means we are particularly disorganised. On behalf of the club, I want to apologise to Convocation. We have destroyed the Irwin Street building, or parts of it, particularly the floorboards where our spikes go every year. And there's a couple of people here that I think I had on the phone on a Monday morning complaining a lot about our lack of, cooperation and the fact that we didn't wash up very well, and most university boys don't wash up. Probably the greatest thing that's happened to the club is that we survived. The WACA were trying to get rid of the Uni Cricket Club. Because we didn't have juniors, they felt that we were not contributing to the WACA. To the contrary, though, we tried to persuade them that through leadership, and I noticed Locke Henderson was just president of the WACA, he was one of our players. A lot of the roles within the WACA and within cricket in Western Australia are university people, so we play a different role and we provide a different sort of contribution to Western Australian cricket. But the day that my highlight of my life was, I think, other than my children, my wife and those other things, but my cricket life was when the WACA threw us out of the competition, said that we weren't there. We took them to the Supreme Court because we worked out that they couldn't kick us out of the competition without going to the members. Then we went to the members, and at a meeting where there's usually about 100, we had 300, and they didn't even debate it. The first thing was we moved the motion be put, and 300 people put up their hand, and it was made them look so embarrassing. They did try it again 4 years later, and we did exactly the same thing, ringing and making sure that we got in. So the Uni Cricket Club survived because of the work of a number of people ringing around and whatever. So look, it's great that we're acknowledging people like that volunteer in these clubs. They are nurseries for young people, for leadership and for West Australian society. And I thank the Convocation for this award.
It's a wonderful story. Congratulations, Peter. Now, in another initiative, and it's really using Peter's words perfectly here, recognising that excellence in volunteering is inbuilt to Convocation, we've taken the supporting role with the Student Guild, presenting an award for the best student volunteer through Guild volunteering. This year it's Hannah Morgaine, whose citation I mentioned before is in my report, and I ask Hannah to please join me up on the stage so that she might receive her medal.
I won't take up too much of your time. I'd like to start by extending a really warm and genuine thanks to the members of the Convocation for this, and also to the Student Guild, who I know are populated by really hardworking volunteers and do a really important job. So thank you, Nevin. Just like Peter Green said, volunteering can be its own reward, and I'm very lucky with the organisation that I volunteer for. It feels more like building friendships and building relationships than it does like work. And it's only when you have a hard day that it does feel a little bit like work. And for that reason, I think I'll always really treasure this recognition. So thank you very much. It's very special.
Congratulations, Hannah. Also, at this point, it's appropriate to remind members, I think it's there, that the 50th anniversary reunion is coming, held at UWA on the 21st of October. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for this evening. So this concludes my first ordinary meeting as the Warden of Convocation, and it simply remains to me to thank my colleagues on Council for their support they've given me for the first 6 months, and particularly also to thank our panel for the Q&A tonight. Quite wonderful and good questions, great answers, so thank you very much. As Council, we accept both the challenges and good times, and believe me, we do enjoy ourselves together, but there are certainly some challenges. Please remember, though, that the elections for Council will soon approach, with various positions becoming vacant, as they must by statute. So if you wish to be involved, please nominate for a position and support your Convocation. But tonight, none of this would have happened without the wonderful assistance provided by our diligent, diplomatic and hard-working Convocation officer, Juanita Perez. I thank her for all the advice and guidance over the past 6 months. I think new wardens are very much like learner drivers, and I've had a lot of help, and for coordinating all the arrangements for this ordinary meeting. I also thank the University's activations team for their assistance in organising the meeting. As with all of our Convocation functions, we're supported tonight by Manny Tomeo Photography, delivering his impeccable services. Manny's a UWA MBA graduate and provides all the photography for Convocation at mates rates as his contribution to Convocation. Thanks very much, Manny. Drinks and supper will now be served on the terrace that leaves to the left my left of stage. So please stay and catch up with friends and colleagues, and thank you so much for attending this meeting. Good evening.